I'm not going to argue that in a lot of cases, men have more physical strength than women, but I believe that tools and technique have democratized a lot of the requirement for like the physicality. I mean, it will come down to, do you like doing physical labor or not? Like, of course, that's a personal decision, but I really don't think there are physical reasons why women can't be pursuing trades. And so it just comes down to kind of a marketing issue.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Building Scale, specifically the Building Connections series, where I get to meet awesome people here in the Valley through other connections I have. And this connection came from Karen at ACE, and her episode was probably a year and a half ago. So shout out to you, Karen. But I got to meet Kate Glantz through Karen and her initiative, Move Over Bob. On the immediate time that she talked to me about this, I was sold on the concept of getting young girls into the trades through first starting off with a print magazine, which is a crazy idea. But their first issue came out last month. Huge success. 350 schools in Arizona, I believe, high schools in Arizona, also women's prisons and other libraries, all kinds of different things. And this episode was post the release, so we got to have a little bit of the, hey, now that you did this thing, what do you do now, Kate? What do you and Angie, her co-founder, do going forward, and the awesome stuff that they're trying to do to help the labor shortage that is in the construction space. We talk about cultural shifts, because essentially building a 17 magazine for the trades to distribute to schools is a gnarly idea in 2025, and I love it, and I'm here for it. I love the advocacy that she has, her passion, and she's just a fun, awesome human being to interact with. So I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did making it, and then also re-listening to it. So Kate Glantz with Move Over Bob, and here's our conversation. Kate, I'm so happy that I got to meet you as a human being. I remember the first time that we were chatting on the internets, just like we are now, and you were telling me about Move Over Bob, and I was like, this is going to be insane. Like, this is going to be amazing. And now, post first issue out, it was like, oh yeah, it was insane. And you did unbelievable amount of work to get there. So kudos to you, kudos to the team, of a small team, that you had on working on the actual issue. But tell us about it. Tell us about the issue. Tell us about why it's awesome, and tell us about Move Over Bob.
So yes, we are about 2.5 weeks into the fall issue of Move Over Bob magazine, being alive in the world. It was quite a process to get there, and I appreciate so much that you saw the vision, and maybe you could visualize what I was trying to explain or not, but you faked it really well if you couldn't, and we're super supportive. And so I think doing something like we're doing in the construction industry does require a little bit of imagination. And so those who got it. But I will say I am so relieved to have a tangible product in the world, so people don't think I'm nuts, because essentially what our inspiration was were 90s and early 2000s teen magazines, which before social media, they were sort of the arbiter of cool, of who you aspired to be like, of what you aspired to do with your free time, what lip gloss you thought you needed to wear. And so there was something very sticky, nostalgic, and impressionable about a magazine. But what was really interesting was when we looked back, my co-founder Angie and I, we looked back and we're like, wait, actually these magazines were terrible for our self-esteem. It was all about being skinny and getting the boy and like how to fit in. And so we were like, well, shoot, half of our hypothesis that print magazines actually do make a huge impact on, kind of teen girls in an impressionable time in their lives, that holds true. But what we really set out to reframe on our quest to show the next generation of girls that construction is absolutely for them too, is to show them, hey, these careers, this is not just a job. Like, this is a lifestyle, and it's a pretty multifaceted lifestyle if you're a woman in construction. And it includes fashion, it includes hobbies, because guess what? You're making money. It includes, all sorts of self-expression and using your innate abilities to do interesting jobs that maybe you never knew existed. And so by marrying that sort of teen magazine vibe with actual information about what it looks like and means to be in construction and in the trades, I think we've hopefully really cracked the code on getting in front of young women who, frankly, are not Googling how to be a construction worker. So that's essentially what we're trying to do. And a magazine is just the start. I mean, really, Move Over Bob is all about putting tradeswomen and women in construction in the center of culture to show the next generation, but frankly, everyone, who we are, what we look like, and what we're about. Because if you don't, they say it's hard to be what you can't see. And if you've never seen a female welder or a female crane operator, it's really, really hard to take my word for it that this could be a great job for you. So representation is essential. And that is sort of where we are focused right now in Arizona.
Yeah, it's so when you brought this to me, I think you may have said this, or at least I then told this to other people, that you were creating 17 magazine except for the trades, and you were going to distribute this across high schools in Arizona. And when I told people this, they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, that's happening. And people in other states that I then also talked to, they're like, I want that. And I was like, yeah, of course you want that. Why would you not want this? This is so super cool. So you went through this ideology of like, all right, you hit this magazine, and then you're like, oh shit, like those magazines weren't necessarily the best motivator of self across the boards. Taking from some of that, right? Because like, hey, the concept, but like, let's make this the positive. Where was this in the creative process? Like when you and Angie are going through this, like what did that look like?
It was, so I will say a magazine was not the number one thing on our minds. It
No.
was really, I mean, right? Like, and to this day, people are like, a print magazine in 2025? Crystal ball do you have? But I
Yeah.
really do think that we are seeing a return to this like nostalgia that was pre-screen, pre-social media. Gen Z is very connected to their records now and
Yep.
to 90s band t-shirts. The music really has come first in terms of this kind of these renaissance, but I do believe print is not far behind it. But the reality is that we needed something to get in front of girls where they were paying attention, school, right? And so, there are a lot of policies with schools where social media is banned. They can't even access it on school grounds, things like that. And so digital, not only was that not going to be the right first step, because frankly, to disrupt a young woman's scrolling journey, whether through an ad or just really good content around construction, that is nearly insurmountable with where we're at in culture with young women and what they're looking at online. So we knew, again, we had to reach them where they were captive. At the same time, obviously at the macro level, we're facing a massive workforce shortage. It's going to continue getting worse over the next few years, and teachers and guidance counselors and educators broadly don't necessarily have the experience, time, empathy to communicate construction as a path, let alone for a young woman. And so where I thought our highest barrier to entry would be getting a private magazine that is not a textbook or school curriculum into classrooms or into schools. That's where I thought, I was like, shoot, let's really see if this is something this is the linchpin here. And I've been blown away. Fully like organic outreach, word of mouth, all of that. And teachers and guidance counselors and, CTE directors, all of them, they cannot request this fast enough. We're in, I think, over 350 high schools and middle schools, libraries, men's prisons, community groups across Arizona, with about 18,000 copies distributed. And this is
Wow.
our first issue. So we had to up the print run 3 times. We were starting at 10,000. All our contracts say 10,000. We're committed to it. If for some reason we fell short, we'll figure it out. And then, in fact, we actually doubled it. So the magazine really was that Trojan horse into hands, right? And what I absolutely love about print, and this is learned from my experiences working in international development in sub-Saharan Africa, where broadband wasn't a thing. And so we had to basically create mass communications campaigns to reach as many people as possible, not using internet. And so magazines and radio are like a very effective tool in behavior change around public health. And so
Mhm.
that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, oh, we don't have the data yet, but I absolutely know the average number of eyeballs, per magazine is going to be more than two eyeballs, right? Like you bring your magazine home and maybe your mom reads it, or maybe your cousin or your brother or the babysitter reads it. And so
Hmm.
the longevity of a piece of print collateral, especially one that's glossy and not like a throwaway pamphlet, that's going to well outlast sort of the like season of its circulation. And I'm already seeing schools asking for classroom sets that they're using as like a resource to sort of build upon each issue and be able to come back to for ensuing school years, which is a big surprise and very cool and
Wow.
just speaks to the demand.
So then you've put the Trojan horse in, right? Like hey, we got in. We're in the schools now. And now they're asking for more. They want, hey, let's make this a continued thing. We want to put this together in a collection, or however they're putting it together for future use. That's amazing, right? So is that the goal? Hey, we're gonna make a bunch of magazines and we're gonna insert it into schools, and that is our plan to get more of these girls into the trades?
Say we are not a magazine company. This is the tip of the spear of how we're going to demonstrate to industry and to really consumer brands that culture is how we're going to fix this problem, at least catalyze a solution to this problem. The problem being we have an enormous shortage of skilled workers. And so we are basically with very limited resources. We are bootstrapped founders doing everything ourselves, and we're just sprinting as hard and fast as we can on 3 issues of this magazine tied to Arizona and the school year to demonstrate this is an investable approach. So obviously digital is where the majority, where millions and millions of, young people are every day, every hour. And so the real goal is building out more of a production arm that kind of holistically meets them wherever they are, but starting in classrooms and with teachers, and building those relationships with young women and having these feedback loops is a really, really like large scale pilot to show cultural interventions are incredibly necessary because it is something new, right? What we're doing isn't rocket science in general, but it hasn't really been. The construction industry sometimes lacks a little bit of imagination and has a bit of a disconnect with how they're recruiting the next generation. And I think there's a very big conversation, right? In the last like 20, 30 years with shop classes being shut down and defunded, with college being seen in society and by our parents as really the only acceptable path to a good life, when now it's almost like it's a risky investment, right? Like there's a lot of narratives that we're going up against. And so you sort of have to fight culture with culture to change hearts and minds. And so that's really what we're demonstrating, but we're doing it in a way that allows us to kind of like track real-time insights, both anecdotally through relationships with hundreds of teachers, industry, and young women. And then also every page of our magazine has a QR code. So we're able to see where young women are scanning for more information. Are they looking at scholarships? Are they looking at apprenticeship programs? Do they love the highlights on women? Do they like the pictures of crazy thing? What is it, right? And so that we're able to constantly like iterate and make each issue better and better so that when we are moving to like much more kind of large scale content development and et cetera, that we're able to have like some pretty grounded insights in whether that's the right direction.
Okay. So even though you are traditional, you take media, let's put it that way, you've then obviously embedded in the QR component, which then gives you so much more data back that then allows you to be more pinpointed on the future initiatives. And that could be anything, obviously digital pieces, but like I have to imagine that there is thoughts on like, oh, how do you get, say GC here in the Valley to host a thing for, let's talk about, women in the space and like what they've done or like just paths to success. You also mentioned like, there's just a shortage of labor, right? Like that is just across the board. And you start saying like, well, if you aren't even suggesting this for half of the population, like inherent, like that's just easy math to me. Like that, it just sensibly makes sense. Why do you think that the rub has been historically that's made like, no, this is just simply a boy job, not a girl job?
Well, I mean, if you look at World War II, it was very much a girl job. I mean, women were doing everything at home. So it's certainly not a reason of ability. I think, of course, gender is, you look at the numbers, 95% of tradespeople are men. It's a little better broadly when you look at like AEC, overall in terms of white collar too, that's about 11% women. Arizona is doing a lot better. We're around 15%,
Woo,
including,
go Arizona.
yeah. And, I think the first narrative really is around college first trades. And that one I think has been incredibly debilitating in terms of like the gender divide. I think it's just what everyone would expect. These are boy jobs and teaching and nursing are girl jobs, and they're just stereotypes. But this is where stereotypes become pretty dangerous because women actually possess a lot of skills and abilities and insights that make them pretty exceptional at a lot of roles in trades and construction. In fact, I think it's wild that the majority of general contractors aren't women owned, in terms of, especially on the residential side, right? Like in terms of noticing, the finishing kind of things that need to be fixed, in terms of balancing lots of vendors and subs at one time,
Schedules, yeah.
interpersonal relationship. I mean, there's so many things that go into construction that women are already doing every day, whether in their jobs or for their families at home. And so like these are very transferable skills, but they've never been marketed that way. And I think it's sort of a subconscious or unconscious bias and pattern matching. Like you invest in people, you like people, you sponsor people, you mentor people, you hire people that remind you of yourself. And when construction is, 89 to 95% men, it's no surprise that they're sort of looking for their protege or for someone who looks like them or reminds them of themselves. And so I just think it's a numbers problem, right? But like, how do you fix that? You need to take new approaches to reaching young women and showing them that like, it doesn't have to be a boys club. And that's a nuance to all of this, is like, just because we say it's a man's job, that does not make it true. Just because right now the majority of people in construction are men, it doesn't mean it's like a boy thing that like is like, it behooves us really to invite women into these spaces to learn how to do these jobs and to do them with their own perspective and their own lens on the environment, on society, on building. Because if you have the vast majority of one point of view building something, you're not seeing around corners in the way you would be if you had a more sort of balanced perspective. So, take physical strength out of it, whatever. I'm not going to argue that in a lot of cases, men have more physical strength than women, but I believe that tools and technique have democratized a lot of the requirement for like the physicality. I mean, it will come down to, do you like doing physical labor or not? Of course that's a personal decision, but I really don't think there are physical reasons why women can't be pursuing trades. And so it just comes down to kind of a marketing issue.
Okay. So obviously you've seen this, you and your partner have seen this and said, hey, this is the thing we're going to attack and we are going to solve and drive towards. I frequently call that like, hey, you have a purpose, right? You have a thing that day and night, this is where I'm going. This is what I'm pushing towards. One, how did you and your partner meet? Maybe that first.
Yeah, it's an tale as old as time, the internet.
The internet.
Yeah,
Perfect.
on LinkedIn, classic. So Angie spent the first 10 years of her career as a cosmetologist. Her path did not really include college, super brilliant, but she was sort of trade school bound. And her guidance counselors and whoever was kind of influencing her at that time pushed her to cosmetology school. And she was the best damn cosmetologist that you could imagine, did incredibly well, bought a house. And as she started renovating that house, she realized she had picked the wrong trade. And so she went back to trade school for carpentry and ended up embarking on an incredibly successful decade in construction, owned her own business, won the This Old House kitchen competition when she was like a few months into her new career. Actually, she was still barbering at the time. And so anyway, she was sort of proceeding down this path and telling stories of women in construction and trades on Instagram and on sort of like a web, moveoverbobs.com. It was very different then. It was a passion project to elevate the stories of women. I was on my path. I started after college. I was always college bound. Those were the stories told to me, and it was a good fit for me. I ended up in the Peace Corps. So I started a career really at day one after college in public service, always sort of with women and economic development at the core of what I was doing, but quickly realized I was a pretty good storyteller and marketing came pretty naturally and I really enjoyed it. And so my career somehow kind of molded over like 10, 12, 14 years, something like that, into really like socially minded, kind of like impact focused work, but through the lens of mass media. And I did that in tech, I did it in government, I was in Hollywood. And finally, I had sort of conventionally like made it. I had bought a house, I was, I had savings, all the good things. And I was like, what am I actually building? Like, what am I doing? And frankly, like now that I'm this homeowner, if I had a leaky faucet, I am not exaggerating. I couldn't have even identified I needed a wrench to fix it, let alone actually fix it. And like that really bothered me. And so fast forward, after my stint in Los Angeles at a movie studio, I ended up going to trade school. Because I'm not like a school of YouTube person. Like I can't just be like, oh, this is interesting. Let me pick it up on a YouTube video. I don't learn that way. I got to go 200,000% all in. So I was like, I'm not just like watching something, man. I am going to become a carpenter. And I pivoted and I did. And so Angie and I met on that journey. Basically, long story long. I had been posting because another thing I'm really passionate about is showing women and people in general, right? Like there's no singular way to live your life. And when you kind of are in alignment with your purpose, with your why, it's going to look maybe crazy to other people, but you got to stay the course. And so I was a studio executive in Hollywood, right? And I left to go to community college to a carpentry program that was fully immersive, all in. That was confusing to a lot of people. And so I was very vocal. I was like, I'm happy to play the fool. And if it gives anyone else permission to jump off the deep end for their own dreams. And so in doing that, actually, it ignited so many relationships that I had that had maybe been dormant from previous parts of my career. People being like, how are you doing this? But one person I knew from DC very loosely had grown up on the same street as Angie and just casually on a LinkedIn comment was like, this is really cool what you're doing. Have you ever met Angie? And so, we met and then fast forward, we got business married and now we own this beautiful business together.
That I believe deeply in being purpose driven, like core purpose, like writing a book about it very deeply about this concept. Literally before our call, one of my friends from college, he called me and he talked to him a bit and was just saying that, he's in his corporate career and it's just not, it's not fulfilling. It's not giving him that thing. He's like, what am I doing this for? And he's like, I see all the stuff that you're doing. Obviously you have the IT, you have the National Construction Board of Influence, you're writing a book, you have all these articles, all this stuff that's going, like, you seem so energized. I'm like, yeah, well, that's because I got my purpose. Like I'm driving towards something. That's the difference maker. I frequently say to myself as I'm crazily talking to myself while I'm walking at 4:30 in the morning around my neighborhood that like being crazy or being perceived as odd is a good thing. Like that's a thing that like I am odd because I'm not just falling in line with the script, right? You were in Hollywood. You can follow the script or you could be Jack Nicholson and add 4 other pages to a 2-line thing that changes the perspective of the whole movie. Right. And that I think is the point. It's your movie to write. And yeah, you can follow the script, but you could also change it completely and make such a larger impact if you truly stay the course. So I applaud you for really flipping the script. I'm totally using too many movie references here, and that wasn't intentional. But like you totally did that because yeah, let me be the oddball that says you can do this. Like this is an option for you. And I think obviously first issue out, second issue already planning to be bigger, better, more involved, more people. That's proof that if you just follow the thing and meeting a random person online that you then become a business partner with, all of those things, that's it. Like that is it. And I think that to the core of Move Over Bob is like, you can do stuff like this. It doesn't mean it's for everybody, but like you should know that there are options to be in construction if you're a girl, and like you should pursue those if that's of interest to you. And like it can be an amazing life and career and legacy that you then have.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I think like we have to not accept the status quo unless it's working for you, right? But there's no rule book, there's no manual. Life is short and then you die. And so, really thinking about what makes you tick. And I know there's like a big school of thought against following your passion, right? Because it doesn't tend to pay the bills. And I'm not saying like, I'm not encouraging, people to quit their job and go make pottery, although maybe you should do that, right? But there are a lot of ways within the parameters you have in your existing life, because a lot of people have mortgages or children. You can't just like get up and travel the world and change everything overnight. But I do think like if you know what lights you up and you know what at least like fills your cup enough to like keep going every day, right? You can sort of structure that within the work you're doing. Maybe you just lean in a little more to the creative side of your work or make it more creative. Or maybe you get, if you're really analytical and your job is more creative, you're creating all the like, I don't need to be prescriptive about it, but I think like there are a lot of excuses of like, oh, it's too late for me, I'm too old, or I don't have enough money. But it's a rubric that's one of one. Like you have to identify for yourself what matters and then sort of shape your life around that. And it feels viscerally different to be pursuing something that I believe in, that I feel good at, that people need, that, will leave an impact. I mean, those are kind of my things, right? I need a lot of creativity. I need a lot of autonomy. It has to be service and mission driven. It has to be positive for women. And it has to put me out in the world where every day is different. And I literally have all of those things. And so there are a million struggles in a startup journey, right? Like it is not glamorous at all. It's really effing hard. But I wouldn't trade it. And guess what? If I fail, I'll pick up the pieces and I'll do something else. And so to me, the really only toxic bitterness I would feel is if I never tried in the first place. And so that's the entrepreneurial spirit, I think. But yeah. So anyway, that's my philosophical segment.
I love it. I agree with that. Entrepreneur, it will eat at you if you chose to do nothing. If you chose to keep on script and not go and write your own, it would have totally done that. So obviously you met tons of supporters of this cause, this idea. Did you get any pushback? Like, move over Bob. Like, are there some Bobs that are like, yo, I'm not interested in moving over? Like,
Totally.
whoa, hold up here. What did that look like?
So I will say Bobs are the biggest fans of the name. Like they're just like, we're being recognized. It's cool. No,
The Bobs, we're being recognized finally.
They just think it's so funny. Like, you have to have a sense of humor in construction especially on a job site. And so like we're showing women and men, right? Like this is a lifestyle. This type of work is not a clock in and clock out. This is head to toe, what you wear, what you do, the car you drive. I mean, it is fully a lifestyle. And so to have a name that was like, and no shade, but like, like empowering gals to use hammers, like something, whatever, nonprofit-y, right? Like we're not a nonprofit. Like we're building, and thank goodness that there are nonprofits tackling this because we need them and we work with them, right? But like we are really playing in culture in a way that needs to feel sticky and resonant. And like there is something feel in your blood when you say, move over, Bob. And it's not animosity, it's taking some power. And women need to like take a little more power. On the male side, there is absolutely no way women are going to replace men in construction, right? Like they are 9 out of 10 people on a job site. And 9 out of 10 times, they're the ones who taught us how to use tools, right? Like they're our mentors, our sponsors, our advocates, our bosses, our colleagues, and our brothers, our, union colleagues, all of it. And so there is nothing about our message that is like, get out of here, men. It's simply saying like, move over a little bit, right? Like let us let us build the table with you, frankly. And we'll be more successful. But the provocativeness of the name is totally by design. And it's meant like you don't forget it. And so I've been joking, like the name has preceded me now in a lot of conversations in the industry. They're like, yeah, I keep hearing your name. And I was like, well, I better be on good behavior because you're not going to forget move over Bob, right? So I have to at least behave a little bit because it's not like we're going to blend into the background. But it's a responsibility I feel ready for and excited about. And I think it's actually a testament to like, this is like getting a little bit off script probably, but we're allowed to do that, right? Because we write our own scripts. But being a millennial, frankly, obviously like in pop culture, we get all the shade. But I actually think like to see, millennials coming into their 40s and like who we are, what we're about, the resilience we have from so much crap in the last, in the formative years of our lives. But we tend to be quite kind and collaborative in a sense. And like, I just feel like it's very exciting to see leadership beginning to shift to a new generation. And I'm really excited to be in a position now where I still, of course, feel youthful, but I have endless optimism and excitement and energy. And it feels like we're really Angie and I and Move Over Bob are really positioning ourselves to be sort of big sisters and, really supportive hype women for this next generation and current generation. So it feels really good to be in this stage of life. And I don't think I could have done this specific startup at an earlier or later stage. It just feels right on time.
That's the world has a way, or the universe has a way to get you in the right place, and you just have to open the door, right? So obviously you've got support for the magazine, you got support for the cause. What's the next thing? Like what's next step? Obviously issue coming out in January, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
New issue on its way. And for this first year in the world, it's a lot of work to make a print magazine. This next one will be about 64 pages. The first one was 48.
Oof.
So we have a lot of work to do.
You got to up the ante every time. Is that a
Yeah,
little bit of,
exactly.
that's just your attitude in life.
I
So
know.
that makes sense to me.
I know. That's a whole other podcast of like, when is it enough? What is contentment? How do you say this is good? We're not
Yeah.
at that phase yet. We have a long way to go, but really we're really laser focused on telling the best possible stories, bridging tradeswomen with actual, the next gen of girls, whether it's through events, storytelling, digital, whatever, but really focusing on making the best possible product we can. As an entrepreneur who can be distracted by shiny things, like I want to tell you we're building out a digital web series, we're, all these things. Honestly, like we are reminding ourselves every day we have to focus on being the best at what we're doing. And so there's just no more time currently because we are, as I said, extremely bootstrapped. And so getting as many young women exposed to the magazine, testing it, making sure this is a really effective intervention, and then focusing on national scale. So again, we're not a magazine company, but like you said, this is something that there's no reason it shouldn't be in every school that wants it across the US with that magical QR code linking to local resources. And so that is the vision, is to make this so undeniable that we're able to scale it nationally and make it profitable, frankly, and then move on to more of the production arm, as well as sort of this marketplace that we're setting the stage for, which will ultimately be this like one-stop shop for a woman navigating and in a career in construction. And that's, what you would think of as like, what are the best steel-toed boots for my small feet? Or like what maternity PPE, workwear is good. So like reviews and sort of access to products. But then like I'm making, $32 an hour at 19 as a first year apprentice. I've never had that much money. So financial literacy, how do you start saving? What's a high yield savings account? What is an index fund, right? Like really, like how do I finance my van when I'm ready to strike out on my own? There's so much information, and women make choices differently. Women perceive opportunity differently. It's a different lens. And so while like, of course, you can find a lot of these things agnostic to industry or gender anywhere, we're really trying to be that community that you can trust and that can serve you all of the things you need to thrive in construction, because retention is frankly a big problem too.
Yeah. It has, how you just explained that. It gives it way more of what you're trying to achieve, that like, this is a lifestyle, right? This is not, here's a job, right? This is like, no. This is who I am, my identity. That, hey, what to do with a bigger paycheck, certainly a bigger paycheck than I got even after college at that point, I think maybe. So like, those are things that, oh yeah, like that's helpful. And then like, oh, you've been in the trades for X amount of time and now you want to go off on your own. Like that's a whole other aspect of life, but trying to make sure that you're facilitating across the board, because it is a ever growing lifestyle, not necessarily just a, hey, here's a job in construction that could be good for you.
Right. Yep. And like, frankly, with the numbers being what they are, like you might be the only woman on a job site for most of the time, but we just want to really reinforce you're not alone. And so building that sisterhood, building that community, that trust, that lift as you climb mentality, which is what I live by, just essentially meaning like every time you go up a rung in life, like you're bringing your hands reached out, right? You're bringing the next generation. And I have to say the thing maybe I'm proudest of is that tradeswomen traditionally aren't like joiners. They're on a job site for 12 hours. They're not doing the biz dev and sort of like association circuit that people on the office side and white collar side are often responsible for. And so you don't see them really represented much. There's been some breakthrough content creators on the, blue collar trade side for women, but really like they're not super visible. And so we are really trying to intentionally build everything we do with them front and center and with their buy-in. And I think like we were the first couple of photo shoots when like no one really knew what we were doing. Like they'd be like, what is this? But fine, whatever, twist my arm. And by the end, the ladies were like, wait, it's over. This was so fun, having their picture taken and stuff. And they just see that we are really, really, truly elevating them as someone to be respected, as someone who's a badass, as someone with an aspirational lifestyle and career. And no one's ever positioned really any kind of blue collar work that way. And I mean, maybe within blue collar circles, yes, but not mainstream. And so like, we're just like, come on, like catch up world. And so I think the women see that that's our intent. And whereas it's usually quite hard to find them, which is why you don't see a lot of tradeswomen on panels and, on podcasts and stuff. I can tell you, I can call or text any woman in our magazine and she will respond and she will, step up to speak at an event, send us a video of her truck showing us what's in it. I mean, you can see on all of our YouTube content. And so this isn't just Angie and Kate running a business. Like this is really a community that like we are creating for all of us, and it's dynamic and it's changing and it's not one thing, but it's very overdue.
Okay. So when you think about, right, say first year, let's go with first year, what's the impact you want to have? Like, what is like, oh, we did something that, man, like that's it. Like that, like we are not to the end goal yet, but we are on the path.
Yeah, I would say I want tens of thousands of kids to see their very first ever female plumber, welder, all the things. And I think, representation full stop is already a huge breakthrough. Whereas, I'll shout from the rooftops, this is not an issue of interest. It's an issue of awareness. And then we can assess really what the deal is. But I think just getting this magazine and our narrative in front of as many young people as possible. And then on the other side of that, as many tradeswomen and as many educators. And so my goal is to continue upping the circulation numbers for each magazine, upping the partners, upping the quality of stories we're telling, and really getting a clear picture on what this all looks like and can be. And I can say like issue 2 is already coming together so much easier and faster and more clearly than the first one, which is great because the first one was really hard to make, right? It was like you were doing it in the dark. You had no idea what page was coming next, whatever. So now that we have a model, I'm just excited to pour gasoline on the fire, get more companies involved, get more women involved, and obviously be capturing the analytics that we can with engagement, because it's, I can't tell you that this is going to turn into 250 new apprentices. Like that's not the work of a print magazine. I still think it will. I think it will yield actual conversion into employment and apprenticeships or pre-apprenticeships. It's too premature to be able to, identify that or set a KPI to that. But I can say that the first level that we are unlocking is a teen magazine full of women in construction in 350 plus schools. And that's a pretty big deal, and we're just going to keep growing.
So kudos to you and the team and all the support that came to make sure the magazine and obviously the ladies that are featured in the first issue, who it will go down as historic in my opinion, because that's
absolutely
one the first of many, or the first of something much larger than themselves. So all this is great. How could somebody help you? Like, how can we be impactful to you? What are things that you're looking for?
Thank you for asking. I mean, as industry support and validation that this is an investment worth making in the future. So I love working with companies in the industry, suppliers, subs, GCs, apparel, workwear, any of it that are passionate about seeing more young women enter the pipeline. And we have a ton of ways to collaborate with these companies. And so that type of support, like the backbone of our magazine is the industry, right? And so when people raise their hand and say, I want to be involved, like that means a lot versus us, always kind of scouting out the story or scouting out the opportunities. So come to me. And then I would say, like, if you have a big presence at career fairs, or you do a lot of recruitment and outreach, like, I'd love for you to buy the magazine and bring it. We have, great wholesale rates. You don't necessarily have to be in it for the message to get across that construction is for everyone. So I think just like distributing it is another really great way, and always just open to collaboration and feedback and, kind words. That's sort of helpful right now. Things are just so crazy. No, but yeah, I think, like, we have advertising opportunities, all of that, but it's not to say that we're just seeking like a financial, like, relationship with anyone. Like, this has to be a collective effort. And like, I want to put the companies and the people who are bought into what we're doing front and center. So I would say moveoverbob.com is where you can learn all about us. I'm Kate at moveoverbob.com. And yeah, let's.
That's amazing. You answered my next question, which was how to get a hold of you. So perfect there. And then is there anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say goodbye?
Well, I will say, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. And I think that, the last thing I'll say is that if you're a man, which in all likelihood you are, probably, well, yeah, you are. I think, a lot of men ask me, they're like, how can I be we call them Bobs for the cause. How can I be a good Bob? And I will say that probably the top thing you can do is be an advocate and a champion for women when they're not in the room, because men are going to take your cue and listen to you and trust you most likely than they're going to trust women. I think that there's just something to it. And so just stand up for what's right. Make room for women who are qualified and skilled and, deserve to be there as much as the men. So that's, to me, what like a real champion looks like, is fighting the fight. It doesn't have to be a fight, right? Just helping bring us along too, lifting as you climb, so to speak, when women aren't in the room.
Awesome. This has been great, Kate. Every conversation with you is great, though. So the bar is always so high. So this has been a ton of fun for me, listeners. I hope you had just as much time. And remember, check out Move Over Bob. They're amazing. If you're here in the Valley, I will find you an issue. I will ensure you have an issue in your hand. Just reach out to me. And until next time, adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
keep building scale.
Scale.